Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of What to Think, the technology news podcast from VentureBeat.com. I'm Jordan Ovett.
And I'm Mark Sullivan.
Today we'll be talking to Bryan Whitaker, Chief Operating Officer of NGP Van, a technology provider for Democratic political candidates. But first, before we do that, some technology news highlights from VentureBeat.com. Here are three of our most interesting stories from the past week. LinkedIn actually did some things to change its reporting structure of data scientists, Mark. It was pretty interesting in the data science world.
So this was like a core group of key players that suddenly got taken apart or separated.
Yeah. Okay. The way it works was there was this data science team, this centralized group of people who mostly came up with new products and also explored usage of LinkedIn, the website that people can use to connect with their business contacts. And what happened was it was like a center for innovation. And a lot of products that people have come to be familiar with on LinkedIn, including skills, people you may know, people also viewed, and who's viewed your profile. That group was basically divided, split out. And the product development group was put inside of the engineering team at LinkedIn. And the people who did the analytics, they were called the decision scientist team. And they were put with the people who already were analyzing growth and ways to make money, basically, for the recruiting product that was premium for LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And so they split them up, and it really is a matter of the company maturing, getting older, and getting bigger and larger with more employees and even more data scientists. And basically what that means is that one average data scientist is not doing like a crap load of things. The person's doing one specific task.
I still don't get it. I mean,
okay.
You have this small team of people that did some serious innovation and changed social networking and made it cool for business.
Okay, and that's your language. Okay.
And yeah, so why wouldn't you just keep them together and keep them innovating if it worked, if there was chemistry there?
Yeah, what I took away after interviewing many people at the company is that there was some overlap, or there was the desire to prevent overlap for people who were actually the data scientists and also the people who worked with data scientists. So for example, in engineering, they would be working on a product, and then it turned out that maybe one of the data scientists was working on something similar. And now, because the data scientists who were making products were brought under the engineering umbrella, they can all work together, and redundancy is prevented. And also, the people who are really good at doing deep dives for the free part of LinkedIn can work with the people who are great at doing deep dives for the premium stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's some question about whether it makes sense to divide like that. Not every company has done that. Some people that I talked to, like the head of data science at LinkedIn, at Airbnb, thought that it is really a great idea to have a central team, but it requires an awesome leader. It requires awesome team. I don't know how to put it in any other way. And so basically, the jury is out as to how things will evolve about the model of centralization. But right now, LinkedIn, one of the first teams and arguably one of the biggest, or one of the companies with the largest data science teams out there.
And one of the most influential.
Yeah, exactly. Has now changed up its structure. There is no centralized team. And that is something people didn't know last week. And we broke it on VentureBeat.com.
Yeah, great story.
Now we are going to talk and tell you what to think about the new Microsoft wearable device. It's a health device. It's called the Band. Mark, what the heck is it?
Well, Jordan, it is a fitness band from Microsoft. Certainly not the first fitness tracker on the market. The very first one from Microsoft, and a lot of people had been talking about this over the summer. We had done a couple of stories on it, and Microsoft had kept the wraps on it pretty well. But it is interesting in that it uses the tiles design that you can see on Windows Phone devices, and on the relatively large display on this watch or on this wearable, the tiles motif works pretty well because you simply scroll to the left and you can see 11 different tiles.
11?
Yeah, and one of them is for receiving messages from your cell phone. Another one might be for tracking steps. Another one might be heartbeat. This device has 11 different sensors in it, and I won't try to name all of them. But
there's a galvanic skin response sensor that tells you if you're stressed out even? Is that right?
Right. And this is one of the metrics that shows up in the companion app that you run on your phone. And the other interesting thing is that this app will run on not only Windows phones, but iOS and Android. Microsoft was smart enough to do that.
And does it require you to have a phone in the first place, or can I wear it and get data being collected and stuff without the phone?
You're really going to want to use the app. I mean, They figure that most people that would want a fitness tracker would probably already have a smartphone. So
damn, I don't want it then.
Although this does have some things that I was impressed with, especially for a $200 device. It has a GPS radio in it, so you can go out and take your run and not take your phone with you.
Okay.
And then come back and the bracelet will tell the phone where you've been and display it on a map.
Okay.
And it does have a little microphone on it, which most of these don't have, that you can actually dictate messages into this, which is something else. It'll take texts and it'll show you who's calling on your phone if your phone's paired with it.
Yes, but does it have a camera?
It does not have a camera, and we're going to have to wait for future versions of this device. But one other thing I will say about it is that the unique Microsoft spin on this is that they're trying to make it tie in with their enterprise work and their enterprise system. So, for instance, it can read what's on your Outlook calendar. Say, if I'm going to be having a meeting with Dylan, my boss, it might read that my heart rate has gone up, And then so it might say, Mark, you've got another meeting with Dylan in a couple of weeks. We suggest you don't drink as much coffee that day so you can calm down a little bit.
That might actually be useful, especially for people like me who are super stressed out all the time.
Yeah. Honestly, Jordan, it seems like a bit of a stretch to me, the way they're trying to link this in with the enterprise stuff. But who knows? People find use in a lot of weird things. So bottom line is I like this device so far. It's not perfect, but for $200, it seems to give you a lot more than most other fitness wearables give you right now.
Now, do I want to hold off on buying this and save up for an Apple Watch, though?
Well, I think the Apple Watch that's kind of in a different category, actually.
The fancy schmancy category?
It's a smartwatch, and it's. But I will say that the lines are being drawn. I mean, part of the play or part of the sell for the smartwatch was receiving messages on your wrist, and devices like this and some new devices from Fitbit as well are starting to display messaging on your wrist, which was before kind of a smartwatch thing. So I don't know. I think the Apple Watch is going to be definitely a sexier experience, but it depends on what your needs are.
Okay, so bottom line, are you going to want to get one for Christmas for someone that you love?
I might consider it. I'll have to use it for a couple more days.
Okay, well, jury's still out then. I'm thinking that it's still not the ultimate device, so I'm not going to get it, but I'll listen to you.
Okay.
And then now we are going to talk about our last interesting story from VentureBeat.com this week. The reported FCC hybrid plan for net neutrality is not winning many fans. What the F happened, Mark?
Well, what happened was Commissioner Wheeler, he has a plan for regulating the internet and regulating network neutrality. This plan got leaked, and it hadn't even been shared with the other commissioners yet. But the content of the plan kind of tries to have it both ways. What it does is it's friendly with the big telecoms and cable companies in that it doesn't regulate what it calls the retail part of the internet, which is, where the last mile, the part of the internet that comes into your household. And sold to you by somebody like Comcast or AT&T. But then the back end of the internet, as Wheeler has it, is what he calls the wholesale part of the internet, which is kind of like the big backbone parts of the web run by companies like Level 3 and AT&T and Verizon, and that would be a little bit more strongly regulated. And what they're trying to prevent here is these big carriers from charging, for like an express lane on the internet. Mm-hmm. And the danger is that smaller companies might not be able to afford that, and that will stifle innovation because you're putting smaller companies at an immediate disadvantage because they can't deliver their service as fast as somebody like Netflix or Google can. So I think that's what they're trying to prevent. The internet has been a place for innovation, and I think that a lot of people are trying to preserve that, and I think it's a good thing. This plan, however, I don't think it's going to get the job done because I just don't think that you can segment it off like that and say we're going to regulate this part but not this part. And especially the retail part, I mean, in my understanding, that's where the real problems happen. That's where AT&T is charging Netflix a premium to send that video content down the last mile into the household faster. So, that's where the fast lane sale is happening. So I think you either got to go one way or the other.
And a lot of people don't like this.
And I think that's the exact reason. I think Wheeler he's been a good commissioner, but he used to run the CTIA, which is the mobile carriers trade group, and he's got some real roots and some long relationships in that industry. And I think he's trying to be friendly with those people, and it's at the same time respond to internet and consumers' desire for a neutral web. This is a tough position he's in. Meanwhile, he's under pressure to do something.
So what should I think about this? Do I want some totally cockamamie different idea? Because this is just one of, I think, a few proposals that the FCC commissioners could be looking at.
What to think about this? I would be highly skeptical of it. What to think is maybe I better wait until the whole plan is released so that we can get the real details. And, this is going to happen fairly quickly, I think. So, yeah, number one, wait till the real plan comes out. Number two, if it is a hybrid plan, hybrid plans are difficult by nature and, read the fine print.
Okay, so I'm going to just wait. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And now a quick thanks to our host and sponsor, software analytics company, New Relic. New Relic makes sense of billions of metrics across millions of web and mobile apps to help the people who build modern software understand the stories their data is trying to tell them. New Relic products, which support PHP, Python, Ruby, Java, .NET, Node, iOS, and Android apps, help improve software performance and reliability to provide a better experience for users and more success for your business.
And now we have on the line Bryan Whitaker, who's the Chief Operating Officer of NGP Van. It's a technology provider that works for a lot of different democratic and progressive campaigns. Previously, Whitaker was the Chief of Tech for the DNC and worked closely with the Obama administration. So welcome to the show, Bryan.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk more about what we've worked on leading up to this election and maybe what we're going to work on going forward.
It's certainly an exciting day, and I'm sure a busy day for you, so we really appreciate you being on the line with us. I guess what we wanted to sort of get a picture of is what it's like inside these campaigns today. I mean, talking about the ground game and all the technology stuff that's going on. What is happening?
Yeah, I mean, really right now what we're seeing is technology is becoming a force multiplier. Campaigns coming out of the Dean campaign back in 2004, even the Kerry campaign coming out of 2004, we realized that for progressives and Democrats to be able to sort of contact voters at scale and be able to make up for the difference that Republicans and conservatives typically have in terms of financial resources, we needed to build technology platforms to allow activists, volunteers, staff, and voters contact one another at scale. What we've done at NGB Van in a lot of our partners in the progressive technology space is really build out these platforms and build out apps that do exactly that, that allow voters, volunteers, staff to reach out to one another quickly, cost effectively, so that we can sort of make up the ground that we sort of see in terms of the Koch brothers being able to drop a ton of money in TV ads and radio ads. And a lot of paid media on the ground. So that's what we're trying to do within the campaigns.
It sounds like a lot of it's about coordination of efforts in these apps, but also reaching out directly to voters who, by data analytics, you might believe are most likely to go the way of the campaign. Is that sort of what it is?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, so I guess to proceed a little bit further in the timeline, 2012, working with our huge data cave in Chicago and the analytics teams both in Washington, D.C. and in Chicago, we realized that we could, really move modeling and score voters based on their probability of voting as well as, who they would support. And so we really turned the 2012 Obama campaign into the most data-driven campaign, and I would say the history of mankind. And so, we've been able to take that even further into 2014 and move analytics, what we call down ballot, so that now city council and state legislative and county commission races can use that information inside of what we call the VAN platform. They can create lists and target voters for online phone banking, for offline phone banking, for mobile app-driven canvassing, as well as sort of old school paper walk packet canvassing. And so all of that's happening within the VAN platform. And, we're seeing huge, I would say historic voter contact attempt numbers coming into today. We've seen over 386 million contact attempts. So, there are roughly 330 million voting age Americans. And so progressive organizations, Democratic campaigns have attempted to touch voters over 386 million times using our platform and the apps that come off our platform alone.
So, Bryan, I think there's always been segmenting, if I understand, especially on like TV advertising. And I just wonder what is new in terms of technology and in terms of the data that you're going to use to do this targeting and focusing that maybe is making the difference.
It actually goes to Mark's question, and I think that it is of coordination. The point that we've gotten to in 2014 is we've allowed state legislative campaigns, U.S. Senate campaigns, gubernatorial campaigns, in places where it's legally permissible, progressive organizations, labor unions, other progressive allies, to be able to share data, share those voter contacts up and down the ballot, and not just in an offline voter contact way, but even the online work that they're doing. And so digital advertising, Twitter communications, email is all now being married to the offline work. And so when someone is identified as a supporter by signing an online form, they can quickly receive a follow-up phone call or a door knock at their home to sort of envelop them into the offline field office campaign. That's really something that we've been able to accomplish, in 2014, and we're going to be able to build on going forward. And, and I guess I would say in 2012, we were able to do some of that at the presidential level. What's really key was making sure that we were able to drive that capability down ballot so that we can win these U.S. Senate, these U.S. House. One of the stories that I think we're going to see this election day is that Democrats are about to take back some governor's mansions that we otherwise would not have been able to take back if it wasn't for field organizing and the coordinated online and offline efforts.
Right. You've said that really where the rubber hits the road is face-to-face contacts. And I wonder if you could talk about actually how it works, where you can use analytics data to put the right faces in front of the right faces.
Oh, sure. Sort of taking a big step back, for voter contact purposes, we work with the Democratic National Committee and with the progressive organizations to collect. We've got data on roughly 330 million Americans. And I would say that we have roughly 300 data points on those 330 million Americans. Wow. A lot of it is publicly available data from, secretaries of state, from the census, but it's also some proprietary information that's coming in from commercial consumer data sources. When you're at a checkout line at the grocery store, when you swipe those cards or punch in your digits, there's information that those companies are collecting on you and they're actually selling on the back end. And so a lot of progressive organizations are purchasing that data and handing it over to us and putting it into our database. And what we do is we allow for them to query on it, to create lists and target and segment the information so that they can more effectively contact those voters. And to, I guess, the second part of that question, one of the underlying principles of progressive organizing is that the message needs to fit the messenger. And so, we're able to know, based on the treasure trove of data, the socioeconomic and the demographic information at the individual level. And so we're able to make sure that the appropriate voice, the appropriate, even someone with the Spanish language skills is able to reach out to, recent Americans from, a Latin American country. And so it goes even deeper than that. I mean, we're able to go into age. We're able to go into, make sure that neighbors are contacting neighbors. It's a powerful way to organize on scale.
Well, this is a question about big data. And I think you probably heard of the Target case, where Target was finding out when their customers were going to get pregnant before the customers even knew that. And this story woke a lot of people up to what big data is like and the predictive powers of it. And sometimes the markers that go into predicting these things bear no obvious relation to what you're predicting. And I was just wondering if you're seeing this kind of big data magic in politics.
Yes and no. It sort of depends on what the question is. In that, if you're trying to figure out someone's probability of supporting a specific candidate, there are any number of variables that sort of factor into that. But at the end of the day, political party registration, past vote history, past identifications on who they're going to vote for, that always figures the most into someone's future behavior. But at the end of the day, there is something to be said for gender data, age data, education level data, race and ethnicity data. They do play a factor into helping to predict the likely behavior at the individual level. With the 300 data points on all those individuals, on average, it's 1/4 to 1/3 of those data points are actually applicable.
Oh, okay.
I just wonder how much value you've seen so far in social networking data. I've seen some interest in Facebook from startups that are looking to help political candidates. And I actually think that there's more potential with Twitter. And I think there's a reason, for example, that Twitter bought GNIP, which licenses the fire hoses of data to companies. I just wonder if it helps to be able to parse certain verbs or nouns or adverbs to predict what type of person is best to show up at the door. Is it the person who's wearing a t-shirt, or is it the person who's wearing a button-down shirt? How much value is in the social data?
There's a ton, and we're only beginning to crack that code, especially in terms of Facebook. I think, Twitter, we haven't yet figured out how to grapple with that data yet. But in terms of what the social organizing power on Facebook, it's right now limitless. And so it's actually one of the apps that we created is Social Organizer. So we marry the voter file to an individual profile and allow a supporter of a political campaign or a progressive organization to match their friends, in a specific targeted political jurisdiction, so say like a congressional district. And so I would be able to go in and know, okay, look, based on the information that I'm getting from the campaign and based on the information that's in Facebook, I need to call these 10 people and urge them to vote for the political candidate that I'm supporting. The underlying value there is the fact that I have a pre-existing relationship with them, but I wouldn't know, their political behavior or the lack thereof if it wasn't for the social organizing and matching aspect with the data that existed in Facebook. So that's something that we're only really beginning to harness the power of. And frankly, to take it one step further, knowing on the back end relationships and figuring those relationships into future campaigns is going to be just immeasurably powerful in terms of a campaign would know to come back to Bryan and ask Bryan, hey, listen, you were able to contact Mark, and Mark actually performed the way that you asked him to, so we're going to come back to you and ask him to vote for so-and-so since it was successful the first time. But also the alternative is true in that, we know not to have Bryan reach out to Janice, because when Bryan reached out to Janice actually performed a different way. That's really where we're at now, and it's only going to continue to build out more.
Wow, that sounds really interesting, and it sounds like some really heavy lifting to to be able to teach machines to do that at scale?
It's computers, right?
Yeah,
and it's math and it's algorithms, and it's taken a lot to get here, but it's been so powerful. And we're working with the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and a number of other progressive organizations, and we're seeing a lot of success. They're matching their most fervent supporters and connecting them with people who need to hear from someone to remind them to go and vote and to persuade them to vote to support a specific cause. And so, and sort of, I guess, taking a big step back, we're seeing a ton of academic research in the political field. And one of the organizations that we work closely with is something called the Analyst Institute. And the Analyst Institute sort of aggregates a lot of testing around the most cost-effective and efficient tactics for campaigning. And the most cost-effective and efficient way to move a voter is to have a long, chatty conversation face-to-face. And the second most cost-effective and efficient way is to have them make a phone call. And if they have a pre-existing relationship, they're able to relate to one another in a very personal way. And so I'm able to call, my grandmother, or I'm able to call my college roommate and say, hey, listen, Matt, we go way back. I know that you've had some health issues. This candidate's, is right on your issue. So I totally encourage you to get out and vote for so-and-so. And so it's, that's really where we're at right now. And again, it sort of goes back to the fact that data and technology is becoming a force multiplier and really making politics more personal.
Well, I've experienced that personally. I mean, that type of persuasion is certainly what has changed my mind on a number of things. So I'm getting the drift that the way that your company is set up is you talked about working down ballot and giving a lot of people the benefit of the data and perhaps the apps that you collected. What can you tell us about how it's architected? Is this sort of a cloud architecture that serves data and apps to a lot of different campaigns?
Did you just put everything in Salesforce.com?
Well, you could, but what we've found is that the decades of experience that we have in the campaign-specific field, and especially in terms of the way that the rows of data are structured, some of it's cloud-based, sure, but some of it's not. We operate in a very low-risk environment. An election is something that is so important from a political exposure perspective that we can't go down. We need to be very reliable. Our uptime has got to be something that people don't even question. And so we've gotten ourselves to a place where our end users don't even think about. That's one thing to put out there. But in terms of new apps and our abilities to rely on APIs and integrate with other progressive technology vendors, that's something where we become a lot more lightweight, a lot more nimble in terms of being able to prop up new apps on top of our innovation platform.
Cool. I just wonder if you can tell us a little bit about what you've been busy with in the past couple of weeks or months. I don't really know what your workload is like, but leading up to today's midterm elections, what have you been doing and how's it looking today?
Sure. So we've been pushing out 4 apps that have been around for a little while, but we're in sort of a highly volatile market in that, and it's also like very low risk. So we don't push out new apps or new features sort of roughly after August or September because we don't want to be invasive with the campaign plans that that our thousands of end users are implementing. And so what we've pushed out until September is really focusing on empowering voter contact. And so I would highlight maybe 4 things. The first one is our predictive dialer. We have the ability to link up volunteers to a predictive dialer so that they're no longer manually dialing in phone numbers. And so they're quickly being connected to a live voter on the other end of the phone, and they're able to give the GOTV message, do the persuasion that's necessary, type in the assessment on whether or not the voter is supporting the candidate or the cause, and whether or not they indicate they're going to vote, and then quickly move on to the next live voter on the next call. I'm in our boiler room right now, and I'm looking at our stats, and it's just sort of, frankly, it's insane the amount of call campaigns that are happening right now. I don't know if you've noticed it in California, but if you're trying to make a phone call right now, you're probably having a hard time getting a line. The second thing that we have is something called Open Virtual Phone Bank, and so this is a similar online call app that sort of feeds a phone number and a prescribed script to a volunteer of a campaign. They are manually typing in the phone call, but what it does is it checks the targeted voter out of the universe, and so other volunteers aren't trying to contact that same person at the same time.
Good idea.
So so it's one of those. It goes back to that word coordination. This is how we're continuing to allow campaigns where legally permissible to coordinate. So one of the exciting things that I heard this morning actually is that there are Democratic volunteers in Germany, Serbia, New Zealand, Canada, and New Mexico. These are all American progressives who are using the Open Virtual Phone Bank to call targeted Democrats in the states.
Wow.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
So, so a campaign can just send out a link, and they can they'll get authenticated, and they'll be ready to make phone calls through VoIP or if they have some other setup.
Wow. It sounds like it's pretty exciting around there today.
Yeah.
Bryan, I'd like to thank you for giving us the insight on what's going on there today and about how your business works. I really appreciate that.
Sure. Anytime. Happy to chat again, especially when it's a little less busy.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for What to Think VentureBeat's Technology News Podcast. As always, you can find us online at VentureBeat.com. And if you haven't subscribed to our podcast in iTunes yet, please do so. Just search for What to Think on iTunes. Bye.